Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time zone you are attending this webinar from. My name is Nirmal Budhathoki. I currently work as a senior data scientist for Microsoft. I do have an introduction slide, so I'll probably wait for that. So today I'll talk about building the right data team. How can we, think about it? How can we consider a lot of the factors that actually matter when we're building the right data team? It is not a rocket science, but it's sometimes I have seen, I've been into the multiple teams in the industry that people still, kind of like either they rush to make a team or they don't have enough knowledge about building the right team. Once you already start creating a team and if it doesn't work out, that's like you lose time spent on hiring, uh, you know, uh, getting someone ready for the role, and later you don't find a good fit or there's no good cohesion within the team, that you're not productive enough to meet the organizational expectations. That's not good, right? So I mean, it kind of matters for every other team, but data team is a little tricky because it could be different professionals working in data with different skill sets, right? And it's kind of like have to find that right balance is the key. So let's begin. I'm hoping with this presentation, everyone, all the attendees will be able to get something out of it. My target audience usually is data science managers or people on the leadership role who is creating or the forming new team, or even like trying to navigate the current team to restructure it, right? So I think that that will be helpful. I'm hoping. So let's begin. So, like I said about myself, I'm doing data science for some time, currently working for Microsoft, been Microsoft in the past as well, as you can see. Uh, and then I also worked almost 1 year for FinTech in Wells Fargo. My transitional path was from data analyst. So I was working for SPAWAR, which is a US government entity. We supported Department of Navy for their cybersecurity command. I was working as a data analyst over there for some time. Then I'm a prior service member. I was a US Army veteran. I served for about close to 5 years, I would say 4 years and 10 months. And quite a bit of journey, lots of learnings. And then I want to share something especially focused on the data team building side today. So for the agenda today, what I have is how do we define a best team, and how can we align our core objectives with the uh, roles, like there could be many roles. I think most popular are data analysts, data scientists, and data engineers. I'll kind of go a little bit towards explaining what are those roles, and then how do you decide. It's kind of like a flowchart way of making right decisions, or what personal you should start with, or depending on the team. So I have something called the magic number 3, right? And it obviously it happens in a lot of situation that we have 3 categories mostly, right? One of the popular categories, but uh, on this examples, right, like we care about company size, whether how do we create a right team, right? It matters, and one of the factor that gonna affect. Then we care about the scopes of the team. What you are building for, right? So usually there is 3 popular verticals like analytics, strategy, and governance. Analytics deal with what we usually think about a data team. By default, it's like doing some analytics, getting some raw data, uh, bringing the value from it, right? Creating insights, reporting from data, things like that. The strategy is what your leadership is, how your leadership is aligning to the overall data strategy or the plan I would say the long-term, short-term goals of your organization when it comes to data. Governance is something that if you're dealing with the compliance risks, it's mostly to deal with the data governance to meet all the standards, policies, requirements that is needed. The industry like healthcare, fintech, they are heavily influenced by the governance when they're creating the teams. Then it comes the structures. I would say its popular ones are the centralized structure, where your data science team is the main core, and you are helping the other functionalities within the organizations. And decentralized, I think the idea is you have a small team for each functionality within the organization. For example, the finance, they have their own team. I'll probably have a slides and we'll talk a little bit detail. The federated is kind of like hybrid of the two, trying to find that sweet balance of centralized and decentralized. Then we come to the three core teams, like, how do we, what are the categories of personals or the skill set we should be looking for? Especially they fall under data science and data engineering and data analyst. Data analysts also have a business intelligence, depending on how you kind of frame your role. A little bit of, I think that this very fine difference on data analyst and the BI. I say BI folks mostly interact with the business partners, more often than data analyst. Data analyst is mostly focused on collecting data and bringing insights, building report. The diversity is powerful. I think everyone agrees on that. When I mean diversity, is not only about ethnicity or cultural diversity; it's about the skills diversity as well. And then you wanna make sure your team is well versed. You're not only hiring the similar set of skills. The last bullet is interesting because when we hire folks, there's two categories usually, right? Obviously, there's more. If you think about the confusion matrix, there's true positives and true negatives, but let's worry not about that. Worry about false positives or false negatives, right? So even in these two categories, which one to be worried about and which one not to. False positives, obviously, you hire a wrong candidate, not a right fit in a way. I won't say wrong, but not a right fit for the role that you hired for. However, false negatives are interesting because this is the data. It's not tracked because it's the right personnel you missed to hire, right? It's a missed opportunity, and you don't know because was that person just couldn't perform well in the interview, and that was the right personnel that you missed. Once you miss, that data is not tracked, the performance is not tracked, so it's really hard. Sometimes we probably have to think about in that direction as well when we build a data team. So let's move on. How do you define a best team? Interesting, right? So recently, if you guys follow the soccer, I mean, if you don't, it's fine. The recent football, every other nation calls it football. However, we call it soccer, but let's call it soccer, right? So, mm, they had a big predictions. A lot of the ML models and everyone was predicted based on the data they collected that Brazil will win, right? But they had a loss against Croatia and they left, earlier, I think, in the quarterfinal itself. So how did Argentina win the World Cup? So let's think about it. I think everyone was talking about the guy in the center there, Messi. He is the key player. He is a true leader. No doubt on that, right? But was he the only person making the difference? Was he the only member who is, able to win this cup for Argentina? Absolutely not, right? Because if you can see, the every team members were contributing. It's a, ultimately the idea is it's a team, right? What we see in the picture is we don't see just Messi in the picture, right? We see everyone cheering up. So that means it's a win for the team, right? If you are also following the NFL right now, 49ers is uh, doing really good, and they are expected to win the Super Bowl, right? Uh, what happened in their interesting story, right? Because their main quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, he got injured, and then their the replacement was the second quarterback, who was actually in NFL. They have this last pick in the draft, which is 262 pick. I guess they call it Mr. Irrelevant. So uh, he is coming to the team and performing really well. He's almost like a plug and play in this team right now because their offensive, setup is so good. The whole team is so good, So I think quarterback is the main position to play for the football. But when he comes to the team, and I mean, he's definitely a talented kid, but he's also surrounded by a good team members, right? That's the main thing. He is coming to the team, and then he's started making a difference, almost like I said, plug and play, right? So, in my opinion, a best team is not a perfect team, but it is a complete team. You got to make sure that you are covered from every direction. You are covered from every direction that is needed for the team to function and meet the objectives, right? So, all of these things that I just discussed, right, relates to the sports, but obviously it also relates to our professional data team building, right? It's the same thing. Like you got to make sure that you're not only focused on one position or one person, but the whole team. Your data team usually needs to align with your organization's vision, right? Like what are they looking for? What are their short-term versus the long-term goals? One of the challenges with the data team is, unlike the engineering or software engineering team, the job titles or roles, they can vary a lot, right, depending on what you're looking for. So I do have a couple slides, kind of like guiding, hey, what is the focus areas and what should be the job titles we should be looking for when you are creating a team. I'm hoping that will be helpful too. So let's come to the next slide, which is talking about how does company size affects. So the broadly speaking, the company size falls under three categories. Like I said, small, medium, and large sized. Most of the startups usually fall in the small. At least they will scale later, but starts as a small size company. The budgeting could be limited. You might be hiring folks with diversified skills, so they can do multiple things, right? It's just like wearing multiple hats, right? Like data scientist is also doing some data analyst work, things like that. So you should be looking for breadth in the skills rather than depth, right? And mid-sized companies, you have some structure in the team. You do you should be looking for balance in a breadth and depth, right? If you think that, hey, uh, you are not ready for the data pipeline work, let me hire a little bit more data engineers than data scientists, because once I build the data pipeline, then only data scientists come in play, right? So those kind of strategy matters, right? Depending on which stage of the company you are at. Then the large size, usually well structured, so you are looking for depth in skills. uh, like you want to create a well-versed team in multiple areas, right? How does scope affects? Now, this is the thing that I was mentioning earlier, right? Every company wants to be data driven, right? So the three key pillars, right, are the analytics, strategy, and governance. And I mentioned in the beginning, whenever we talk about data team or data, we think about analytics by default, right? So analytics is mostly converting the raw data that the company has, to valuable insights. Uh, it also good place to start, right? So this is probably the first place to start if you're not thinking about any other pillars. Most of the small to the first tier mid-sized companies, I would say not the first year, but like the last year mid-sized companies, when it comes to this size, they just fall in that fine border of small to mid-size. They can focus on the analytics first, then they can slowly build the other key areas, right? However, there's a caveat, because if your company, even if it is a startup or a small size company, and you deal with the healthcare or fintech, where actually there's no, there's no option to leave governance piece out, right? Because you are regulated, you got to follow policies and processes, right? So on those kind of industry, you got to have to create at least a small team to handle that. So, and then there's a strategy, which is also the planning and the roadmap. Like I said, especially this is how do you lead your current uh, data uses to the future, right? What are some of your long-term goals or vision, right? That the data can tie your business together, right? So that this just mostly of strategy building, right? How does structure affects? So this is important, and probably have a little bit more slides on this area, because as you can see on this slide, this is example of centralized, because you have a data team that supports all other functionalities within the team. Like examples being marketing team, your finance, supply team, product team, HR, whatever, right? So you sit it in the central. Uh, the advantage you get is it is almost like the uh, you know uh, intra the organization consulting, because you are supporting all other functionalities, and then the data team is one of those functions, right? So the expanded version here is showing some titles like data analyst, data scientist, and data engineers. There could be different ones, right? The BI engineers or any other, which we'll chat about later. But these are probably the main three job titles we see. This is mostly recommended when you are in the beginning of your data journey, right? Like I said, a small team, you're just starting your data journey. You can start building a centralized team, and then in future navigate to other options, right? So the other aspect is the decentralized, where your each function will have its own team, right? So data platform is the one that is shared by all the teams. Domain experts are aligned specific to the functions. For example, if I hire a data scientist who is more knowledgeable in finance domain, I probably align with that team. Similar to the marketing, if the marketing advertising experience folks, I align to that team. So this is a little bit of more alignment of the experience and the domain, right? When you already have a data platform and you already have your infrastructure set up, I mean, when I say infrastructure, so like a data warehouse or data lake, you have a common analytics platform already built, right? Then I think you can go with the decentralized team, right? And then this is probably suited for uh, obviously small to the lower mid-sized companies, right? Here's a table that shows what is some advantages and disadvantage of the centralized decentralized, and so probably won't go through everything. I think the slides will be shared with you. Like the main key points are, for the centralized, the folks get opportunity to work in diversified projects. When I was in Wells Fargo, we had a centralized data team, and then we were creating these small parts, right? Like in a way that, hey, my leadership was creating, hey, a couple of data scientists, one data analyst, or one data engineer, they're working on this project. So distributed way of working on multiple projects, and then we kind of like go around and robin, so because we also get to experience different uh, domain, right? So, for example, I was working in the fraud detection project once, then I worked with the other uh, sentiment analysis for customer team, things like that. The main disadvantage, I would say, for the centralized is the analytics team sometimes can quickly get into more operational support. Like you are the main core data team, and every other functionality thinks that, hey, all the technical depth for related to data and everything, kind of falls under the lap of the same team, right? So it could be sometimes process heavy, uh, could be a little bit slow, and bureaucratic. So those are some of the disadvantage. On the decentralized side, some of the disadvantage are your leadership could be sometimes blindsided about other functions, like where they are at the data strategy, things like that. uh, you know, and you probably won't get much opportunity to work on different projects. But the flip side to that is you will build domain expertise on one key area, right? So now the federated is the combination, like the hybrid model of the two. Like I said, central team remains for operations, training. They kind of like call this as a center of excellence, the core centralized team. And then they also have some data scientists or data engineers deployed. They call it deployed because they are kind of like attached to the different teams depending on what what is the need, right? What is the project duration they are assigned for that project. So this is usually recommended when you already reach a data maturity, and then you had to have a good data strategy in place, right? So this is, I would say, the North Star, right? When you want to get to this level. Then we have three teams. So usually the three teams are data analyst, data scientist, and the data engineers. Data analyst, they are the people who is collecting data and generating business insights. The skill set you should be looking for are SQL, a little bit of Python, and data visualization, right? So it's more about the reporting heavy and data collection and kind of like analysis heavy. Data scientists do data analysis, the exploration piece, and then the predictive analytics, right? They build the machine learning models. So the skills you should be looking are Python or R, whatever, but Python is getting more popular in the industry. So then the stats and math, because you kind of need the foundational stats concept, to understand these models and how to interpret, how to apply in the use cases, things like that. A little bit of SQL. It's always debatable, but I prefer data scientists knowing SQL because sometimes you need to get the data by yourself, and then to build the proof of concept or the MVP, and at that point it is valuable. Domain knowledge is important for data scientists because you need to understand what data you're playing with. Initially it may not come for the early career data scientists, but for the experienced data scientists, domain knowledge is very important. Then we have data engineers. I think data engineers are usually called data plumbers because they are the one who is building the pipelines and the infrastructure ready, right? They are orchestrating the ETL jobs. I'll correct the slide later. Sorry about this. The skills needed usually are your software engineering skills, DevOps, building pipelines, Python for obviously for scripting. So I'll definitely add this here. So if you begin this flowchart, right, like all those titles that I mentioned, basically if you're doing analytics, then you kind of focus on the general analytics or business oriented, right? So mostly if you're attached to the product team, then you probably need BI analyst to have a little bit better understanding of the business. If you're just doing the general analysis, right? So kind of like bringing the raw data, developing some dashboard for key performance indicators, some metrics, so then data analyst is the ideal way to go. If you want to do a little bit more than analytics, right? So you're doing machine learning, then yes, if you're doing machine learning, then you want to kind of hire infrastructure, pipeline ready, right? So you want to hire data engineers if you're working on the infra side. Then if you're working on ML side, then you focus on data scientists, right? So this kind of gives you a little bit of better idea of how to make decisions for the right role. This is the one slide I kind of love it because there's various titles floating around in the market, and you need to be focusing on hire the right roles for right skills. So Data science is not always about doing the machine learning or the AI, right? It could be, analytics side of it, right? So if you want to focus on data analyst, business analyst, titles like I mentioned earlier. If you're doing the ML, if you're not doing the ML, I probably won't even think about hiring data scientists or applied scientists because they will leave the team very shortly, right? They're not the right fit. So in that case, if you're doing a little bit of ML or the AI related work, then only you focus on hiring the other job titles, and the core skills I listed here also kind of like separates these two verticals out. Diversity is powerful. I cannot reiterate enough on this because it creates a good culture. It also brings the different mindsets together, uh, helps every team members learn and grow from each other. The important piece here when I talk about diversity is just like highlighted in the beginning. It's not about always about ethnicity or the diversity in demographics or other things. It also means about the diversity in skill set because you want to complement each other rather than like you're hiring a same person on a stack, right? So that's the good examples, right? You have probably like 7 different roles, and then like if you fill most of them with for example data engineers, and then you already have a pipeline build. What are you going to do with those data engineers unless they are interested or they wanted to transition to the data analytics, data science side, right? Because that's why you need to probably be careful about when you're starting forming the team itself, right? In the beginning, you may hire maybe 1 or 2 more data engineers because you want to focus on building the platform. Then you're gonna start ramping up your hire on the data science side or data analyst side, slowly, right? You don't just stack at once. The false positives versus false negatives in hiring, like I mentioned, if we define positive class as a hire, negative class as no hire, false positive is the person we hired, but it's not a good fit. Uh, False negative is we decided not to hire, but the person would have been a good fit, right? And this is the data hard to track. The false negative ones, they are missed opportunities, uh, you know. But this doesn't mean that you're going to have to lower your threshold or the hiring bar needs to be lowered, right? So you just have to make sure that like your interviews process is much streamlined, and then you are getting the right candidate for the right role. Some of the helpful tips, if your company size is small, you deal with less compliance and governance. You start with the analytics team, start with the centralized team. Firstly, focus on data analyst before even you start on the data science or ML route. Try to understand the feel of the analytics first, right? Then your company size is medium. You also deal with compliance and governance, like maybe a healthcare or fintech industries or any other industry that kind of like policies are and governance are heavy. Then you also need to set up a small governance team as well. And then if your company is big, you need all three, right? All those 3 pillars. I usually go with the federated on that. Then you can focus on hiring all 3, right? Finding with a good balance, of course. So my final thoughts here, we are end of this presentation. So leadership is not what you can do, but what your team can do for you. I still have the connection link there for LinkedIn if you guys feel free to connect with me. This is a picture from my military. This is me standing here. It's like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We had the range to go, and the only message I'm trying to give from this picture is, I couldn't have been a good leader for my team if they were not supporting me, right? So I still remember most of the missions we did. We passed with flying colors. We did excellent, and it's all about because of the right team. All right, so that concludes my presentation. Thank you, everyone, and I'll take pictures. The questions from here. Thank you. Bye-bye.